Alain, would you share with us your key practice that has been honored today, and maybe share a little bit about your Sodexo experience and background?
Okay. Good morning.
Yep.
Right? Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alain Masson. I've been working for Sodexo for 23 years. I am very happy to be here, but you might not so be pleased with my English. However, you can be sure I will do my best. To begin with, I would like to say a few words about Sodexo. Sodexo is founded in 1966 by Pierre Bellan. Sodexo is now the global leader in services that improve the quality of life. We operate in 80 countries around the world, and we count 420,000 employees. In France, we are actually 37,000 employees, and we are providing catering for hospitals, companies, or schools. Quality of life services, what does it mean exactly? We provide three main types of services. The first type is on-site services, from reception, safety, maintenance, cleaning to food services. The second type is benefits and rewards services, covers different types of vouchers like meal pass or gift pass. The third type, perhaps less known, is personal and home services, like senior care at home, conciergerie, I think it's the same word in French, and child care center. The reason why I'm here today is to talk about the disability network. This network was developed for the on-site services activity, as it represents the vast majority of employees in France. What is exactly the disability network? This is not an employee network as such, where people get to know each other and try and do some networking within the company. It is an internal workforce with 80 voluntary members who take part in promoting the employment of people with disability. The goals to achieve are set in a collective agreement signed with the trade unions for a period of 3 years. The Disability Network was first created in 2006, together with the signing of our first disability agreement. We are now going through our third agreement. What are our current goals? We are carrying out several actions with qualitative and quantitative targets. I will not present all of them today, because it's too long, but I propose to address only the main ones. The first one, not so surprising, it's to recruit a set number of people with disability. By the end of 2014, we have planned to recruit for permanent or fixed-term jobs 160 people with disability. We have planned also to recruit 50 apprentices, and also we have planned to recruit 120 interns. The second action is to maintain or to retain employees with disability. This is a very important subject. In fact, for me, one of the most important subjects, because this action demands a lot of energy, a lot of imagination, and sometimes a lot of money. The subject is how to help our employees who become disabled or people whose disability worsens. The aim will be to ensure the community of the contractual relation between Sodexo and them, in order to maintain a professional dynamic. For example, finding a new job for a cook who has recurring back pain and who cannot work in standing position anymore. For this action plan, we have a minimum target of 100 disabled jobs maintained over the duration of our agreement. The third action is about training. In particular, make training available to employees who need to offset their disability. For example, the funding of a French sign language interpreter in a training session for deaf people. Also, specifically training sessions for the members of the Disability Network. For example, in 2012, with HOD, we have trained 50 new members of the Disability Network. The fourth item is a cooperation plan with the shelter sector. The a new word for me. In France, as you probably know, there are charities who have set up institutions for people with special needs. Some of them run workshops where people with disability can work. So our goal is to increase the purchases that come from those organizations. For example, the jobs that we ask can be about printing a brochure, sending posters, special marketing campaign, and so on. We work also with Ezad Berthier for some meals also. Finally, maybe the most important action, because it supports all the actions I just mentioned before, is about communicating and to raise awareness. Generally speaking, people are afraid to hire or to work with the people with disability because they have a lot of preconceived ideas. We need to raise awareness and counter stereotypes. We need to explain the Sodexo disability policy to all staff members to tell them how they can be supported. That means spending, for example, a lot of time in meetings all over France. We also release a new brochure. We are very proud of this brochure. Like this one, that was sent at all employees, people with disability, people without disability. We made also some videos which present testimonials of employees with different types of disability. We organize training sessions, etc., etc. Now, how does our network operates exactly? The network was designed to take account of the high degree of decentralization in our activity. In fact, there are more than 4,000 teams located on different sites all over France. There are 80 members in the network. Who are the members? Some of them are human resources officers. The majority of them working in operations as managers. And to finish, a good number of them, approximately 25%, are trade unions representatives. What are their missions? In addition to their operational jobs, they serve as the main point of contact for line staff in regional divisions. They spread the third agreement action plans over the country. Their role is to help managers in the recruitment and the job retention within the teams. Finally, they cascade communication about disability and help overcome stereotypes. The coordination of the network is ensured by a central entity, which is called in French, Mission Handicap. As you have probably understood, I am the manager in charge, and I work with a mission officer. By the way, she does a marvelous job, and she is with us today. Voilà, ça c'est le dernier. What are the difficulties we encounter? Because there are some difficulties. The most important one is that the member of the disability network, volunteer for this mission, have to do that in addition to their current responsibility at Sodexo. It's not always easy to make themselves available. Therefore, their involvement may vary because they have to deal with additional workload, because they change in position within the company, because they change in physical location. After a while, some of them may feel less motivated. And of course, some people happen to leave the company. As you can imagine, it requires a lot of individual attention on our behalf. To try and improve this, we have designed two new measures last year. The first one is a commitment charter. It is signed by the network member, by his boss, and by us. The charter outlines the role of the member, his missions, also the obligations facing the management, and the means that will be provided by the company. For example, training session for a new member of Disability Network. The second one is the co-optation of new members. When the network member is forced to leave for whatever reason, often he knows somebody who would be interested to take over. So this is why he is requested to propose a replacement. Now, there will be a lot of more to say about the Disability Network, but I think it is time to conclude.
Enfin,
Voilà. Très bien.
I'm the timekeeper.
I think one can say that the 7 years of its existence and the pretty good results prove that the disability network is both necessary and effective. In the last 7 years, we have noted that preconceived ideas and stereotypes have changed considerably in our organization. Managers are understanding the advantage of including or keeping workers with disability to improve the atmosphere of work groups and team spirit. We note also a development of solidarity between departments or operational business units when it's necessary to find a new job or a new position for an employee hit by disability. Fortunately, it's not only a financial issue. Voilà, it's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Merci, Alain, for this really interesting presentation in a very decentralized company. I think this is one of the key issues, how to develop the motivation in the various locations on a voluntary basis atop the job. This is really something, and how to renew this network. Now I will turn to Leslie. Maybe Leslie, can you? You already are equipped.
Equipped.
Yeah, well, we're in the house, so you
Privilege.
you can be here in the other floors.
In the other floors, okay.
How does it happen at Accenture
Yes.
on the workforce issue?
Okay, maybe just a few words about Accenture because it's better to understand the specificities. So Accenture is a global company, managing consulting, technology services and outsourcing company, which counts around 260,000 people serving our clients for about 120 countries. So Accenture helps its clients to become high-performance businesses and governments. And in France, we count around 5,000 people. And our population is about 90% of consultants, so we are at the client side. So that's one of the specificities, and the skills requirements is also one of our specificities. So as I said in the introduction, we've been working around disability for more than 4 years. We don't have a collective agreement yet. We have just started negotiations with the unions, but so far it was just an internal project. So at the beginning of the project, we decided to have a disability committee. We're gathering the main stakeholders, such as procurement, human resources, recruiting, and a project manager who is here with us, Marila, and chaired by our country managing director. So it helped us build interesting initiatives, such as a work-study training program. So to face our difficulties to find skilled disabled people, we needed to find a solution, so we decided to propose a qualification work-study program of 6 months. That means for unemployed disabled people. So, lost my point here. So they didn't have any SI background, so we needed to make them discover the SI world, learn the Windows environment, know the basic software such as back office, make them understand the working environment. So we had to deliver courses, basic courses around accounting, management, client relationship, and English. So this initiative was conducted in several phases. First of all, we needed to identify the business needs, build the content of the training, find the right schools to deliver the training, select the applicants with the help of specialized partners such as Handisup and Cap Emploi, and train the teams and the managers. So we have selected 10 applicants. The course was split between time at school and internship in the company. Unfortunately, we didn't get the success that we had expected, as we only offered 3 permanent contracts as junior developers. At the very beginning of the program, 3 left the course because they finally discovered that they didn't like technology. That's life, and we are used to that problem of attractivity.
Like anybody else.
Yeah. And then 4 of them left for a long-term sickness leave, so didn't enable them to follow up the program. So this program is very federative, but also requires strong implication from the management. So we now need to take time to analyze the reason of this mitigated results, to adapt it and renew it for next year.
Right. But I think trying is
Yes.
the first step, and it creates a a common culture within the company.
But the challenge here is really that everyone was just so motivated, but it really required strong implication. So now managers are a bit disappointed. So we really need to adapt and remotivate everyone so that we can start again.
This is a very concrete example. And from our discussion when preparing this meeting, in France, as you may know today, especially, there is a lot of social dialogue, strike included. In the French regulation, social dialogue make happen collective agreement that give means to disability missions within companies. And you told me, Leslie, that you were not yet covered by a social agreement.
No.
So it's part of the culture also before.
Yeah, we always do it before we sign anything. We wanted to test first, understand really, because it's a domain we didn't have any expertise in. So we needed to understand, have a status of the situation, because we already knew that we will have some difficulties because we required some specific skills, and we will not change that. This is a requirement, so we won't change that. So we prefer to have like a project, see how it goes, have some concrete things to talk to the unions and start with a collective agreement, and then of course we know that we will have more investment in terms of financial means with that collective agreement. But it was really a project we wanted to start before thinking of a collective agreement. Again, it's really linked to the fact that it's part of our strategy, that diversity is really part of the human strategy for us. We need a diverse workforce to be performing on the long run. This is really our belief. So, of course, we have regulations and we will use them as well, but that was not the starting point.
And this is, which is true for France, is true for the other countries. This is a very good transition to go to travel a bit within Europe.
Yeah.
Dominique, would you give us an overview of what happens in the various EU countries?
First, something about the. It's okay? Right. Okay. Something about the common. What is common in the different national policy in Europe? But approximately nothing. We have 4 models of employment for people with disability. One is the quota, okay, with a compulsory approach. It's a lack of confidence in the company to hire people with disability, so they are obliged to do that. And the use of a fund where there is penalty paid by the companies. That's the first model. But we have in this model different level of quota. For example, in Germany 5%, in France 6%, Austria 4%, Spain 2% for the companies, 7% for the public sector, and Italy 7%, Poland 6%. And we have 10 other countries which don't implement their quota. They have quota, but they don't use it, really. And one new country, Netherlands, just adopted a quota, which will be applied in 2015. Okay. The second model is countries with quota only for the public service. They don't want to oblige a private company to have quota, but they think that the first time is to favorite employment in public services. You have Belgium, Ireland, Portugal. The third model is non-discrimination approach. It's UK, United Kingdom, which don't want to. They had a quota of 3%, but they adopted a non-discrimination approach in 1995. And the first problem is the interpretation of reasonable accommodation. That's the difficulty for employers. How to be sure to give the good accommodation for people with disability. And you have two other countries like that, Estonia and Latvia. And the last model is the solidarity model in the North countries like Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. That's oh, you can imagine the difficulty to connect all this. But there is perhaps a solution. It's the implementation of the UN Convention for people, for the rights of people with disability. Every country, almost every country in Europe signed it and ratified it. It's the case for France. So we have to apply this approach. The second point I wanted to say is about supported employment.
How can we do better inclusion of people with disabilities?
Yes, yeah. And the model which can have a good future, even in France, which is not applied for the moment, it's supported employment. The context is the UN Convention. Okay, the difficulties to find work for people with disability, depending of the demand of the companies, of course. And so you have to accompany the person with disability. And also, employment is one of the main approach for the inclusion of people with disability. So we have to find solution. The supported employment is one of the solutions. What are the
What does it concretely mean, supported
Yes,
employment?
exactly. First of all, a real work contract. That's a first point. Place and train, and no train and place like we do generally. To follow the person as long as needed. That's new also for generally. To support the person and the employer. They need support together. And to have a wage at a conventional level, at least minimum wage, if we have wage. It's
A wage accordingly to the job.
yes, exactly. But sometimes you have a decreasing wage for people with disability. Who knows why? Okay. It's not okay. So there is it's a bridge between two ways: activation measure and specific provision like shared work. Can be used to help people from shared work workshops to go in the open labor market. It's a way to make that, and it's especially interesting for people with learning disabilities. And the different process are the client engagement with the self-determination, that's important, informed choice, not easy, everything, everywhere, empowerment of the person. After that, vocational profiling, find a type of job finding, working with employers, of course, because on and off-job support, and career development. That's a step-by-step approach. Okay, it's for me. It's a very you have in Europe two types of supported employment. One is a sort of alternative with the shared work workshop, and the other is a complement of shared work. We don't know in France. I think we prefer the second type of approach. So, what is it's new in France, of course, but it's in Europe. It's developed by the European Union of Supported Employment. If you know, you can have very good information on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. I think this model of supported employment is something that is partners, and I think it's like a mayonnaise. Sometimes it takes, and now it takes quite good, and we're having an end of this big project in European program in September in Istanbul. I think it helps change the mentalities. It helps open to other solutions which can be experienced by people. And you can have individual commitment. I think it's something that is very strong. You need network of employees. You need some strong will from top to down and bottom up within companies. But you need the commitment to survive those that started it. And it's one of the key issues. In other examples, at AFMD this time, we've been having one of our group of companies on how to develop the career of people with disabilities this year, and we'll have something out during the fall this year, guideline with good practices from companies. We've been touring a few European examples of our member companies on how to develop careers. And the ways for someone with disability not to be taken for their disability, but for their potential, for their wishes, for their normal evolution, just like anyone else. It has changed the mindset of those that work together with the people with disabilities. Because stereotypes, as you mentioned very well, are there. So how can you break the stereotypes? How can you help people within the different organizations have a different look at people with disabilities and consider them just like normal, regular colleagues? And it's not about ignoring disability. Sometimes you need adjustment. Sometimes you need to train the people with disabilities, train the people that are around people with disabilities. And this is one of the key issues. I have maybe a few questions to Leslie and Alain. How do your companies develop a global, or European at least, culture on disability issues?
I thought European, we work global all the time. Well, we are exchanging a lot around the best practices, but then it's also very local. So, like I was saying, we know that in France we had trouble to find qualified disabled people. So this is very local. So that's why we need to work up front in schools. That's also why we need to have training inside the company, because that's the only way we will get the right people. Because as you said, we really keep on our requirements. We will not change anything in terms of what we ask to the applicants. So the skills will be the same if you're disabled or not. I think it's also very important in terms of message and for the teams and the managers, because if you change that requirement, then you will sort of hire people that are not really in the standard of the company, and then you will not get the implication from the management. So it's very important for us to keep that the requirements that we have for anyone, and it's the same for every I would say theme of diversity. So it's really it's a global company. So we are always working with global on any subject. So it's more exchanges of best practices, but then we have our local programs.
Sodexo?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Well, how do you capitalize on your French experience to other countries?
I think in Sodexo it's not as global as Accenture, but sometimes with Aude we participate to some webinar with other European countries, and of course France has a little advantage because of the loans, for example. So, but I think it's not very efficient because we exchange best practices, but I think it's more interesting to go to the countries and exchange with human resources or diversity teams, but it's not as efficient as we can imagine.
It really happens on the field. We have it even at Adecco. France is very strong because of this history. Last year we placed 6,500 people with disabilities, but at European level it's 10,000. So we have more than 45% of 65% of the results. But some countries are doing good because of the quota, of course. Some can do without quota, and I was really surprised last year by our UK colleagues that did lots. They were helped by the sponsorship of the Olympic Games that helped them foster on inclusion of people with disabilities, but inclusion of all various categories of diversity. So we should not miss any good opportunity to include people with disabilities.
Yes, but perhaps one of the more interesting approach is the Swedish approach, because they developed the accessibility of all society for a long time. I remember at the beginning of my work as a student in the 70s, okay, I met people from the cultural center of Sweden, giving me in French little booklets on accessibility of schools, transport, public buildings, individual flats, and so on. You can imagine
It starts like this.
And now, of course, it's easier to open all possibility, all opportunity for people to work really if the society is accessible.
Actually, we have a workplace panel, and accessibility is physical, and accessibility is something, but it's accessibility of the mindset in the end. Maybe I will turn to the room, to the audience. Would you have some questions to our guests today? Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Angela Guy. I'm with L'Oreal USA, and I just wanted to get some clarity on the quotas that you identified. You mentioned there were 4. Can you just repeat them one more time?
4 models. One is the quota for public and private companies.
Yes.
The second model is the quota only for public sector.
Okay.
The third is a non-discrimination approach, like the UK. And the fourth, it's a solidarity model. It's a Swedish model.
And what the solidarity model means?
It's a sort of cultural control on people, not laws, but a way to behave towards the diversity.
Everyone feels responsible for the lives of others.
Okay.
It's really a solidarity model, and sometimes you have some inputs by local government most of the time to help facilitate when there is a little need of money to do the investments.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other question, please?
Hello, Valerie Manuel-Byrne from Renault. I have a question on your term saying separate employment, because I heard supportive employment and separate employment. Are you referring to protective workshops when you refer to separate employment?
I didn't use separate employment, but supported employment or sheltered employment.
Okay, so
Sheltered is, of course,
sheltered, right. So when you refer to separate, you refer to sheltered employment. And is the recommendation to encourage an increase of sheltered workshops?
No. The encouragement is use supported employment. But there is some country where they think that supported employment will taking place or replace the sheltered workshops. I don't think so in France, because the sheltered workshops are ruled by the organization of people with disability and their family. They don't want to close this sheltered workshop. But it can be used to progressively give ordinary status to the disabled workers, the worker with disabilities.
I think we're trying to build new career paths for people with disabilities, and some are only selected for sheltered employment against their will most of the time, because they ignore what happens on the open labor market, because they are overprotected by families too, and because they are told from day one when they come to school that they will end in sheltered employment. Now we have a solution to help build career paths from sheltered to open labor market, and supported employment is one of the ways to facilitate this. Some sheltered employers will say, you will take my best elements. It's part of the reluctances that we face in Europe most of the time. But in the end, I think it's good to help new people go in sheltered employment, because there are some waiting lines that are quite long, accordingly to the countries. And it's also good to ask the persons themselves what they want to do with their professional lives. So it's autonomy is key for people with disabilities, and employment, it's part of the dignity. Whether it is in sheltered environment, if it's well made in some countries, in some you still have way to go, but supported employment is a good solution to help break the barrier, train on the place, and this is part of the critical issue, and it's also helping the open labor market to break down their stereotypes.
I mentioned the UN Convention because, for example, in France, shelter workshops, people working in these workshops have no work contract. It's outside of the work code. It's the case in Germany, it's the case in Ireland, many countries. So, but the UN Convention mentioned that it's not correct. They have to have a real contract. So it will have an incidence on the French policy, on the German policy, on the Irish policy, and so on.
Another question? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. Yeah, Stéphanie.
Hello, my name is Stephanie. I work in the diversity team of L'Oréal based in Paris, and my question is more for the two companies. Can you please share with us one specific best practice that proved to work well and that was transferable to other countries? Thank you.
I think I have already presented this best practice, but it's not an idea from Sodexo. It's we show this idea in generally or Bosch. It's to make some recognition of disability people, of disabled people. You have to these people have to be more confident for the disability policy of this company. So you have to make a lot of information and to increase the confidence about the disability policy. So this type of brochure was sent at home for all employees in Sodexo France. So you have a lot of information, and I think it's a best practice because we have already made this brochure 2 years ago, and some people with disability call the Mission Handicap to share and to express some needs. So I think it's one of the best practices.
Leslie?
Yeah, for Accenture, I would say that it's in the same domain, meaning sensibilization and training, because we face the same problem in every country. As you have seen maybe in our logo, it's high performance delivered. So we know that we have an issue with that because people will probably fear to disclose as people with disability because they might be seen as less performing than others, and it's really present in our culture. So we really need to sensibilize people, management, and train the right managers, HR people to be able to make sure that people understand that this is really something we want to make clear, that there is no performance issue, there's no change in our requirements. Again, I insist on that. So I think that's the one we are really sharing globally. And then again, the point is we have a lot of local programs because it's also linked to the country. We are here about what's happening in other European countries. In France, we are quite late, in the country, like for students, for example. We realize that it's only now for 1 or 2 years that schools, high schools in France are really taking into account disability. So we have, of course, more local programs than global ones.
Maybe one in terms of recruitment that has proved to work in one other country.
A question on recruitment.
Well, the thing is, our process of recruiting is just the same for everyone, even for disabled people. Again, because of those skills requirements and the fact that we don't want to say that we changed that because of people with disabilities. So our process of recruitment is just the same. We have just used new forums, specialized recruiting partners, job boards, etc. But the process is just the same, and it's everywhere in Accenture.
But in the end, it's the attention, the care to people with disabilities and global comprehension of their needs and the needs of the workplace, the workforce, the colleagues, and the work environment that make the difference. Now we will shift. Nadine, you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to respond to Stephanie for a second. What we're seeing works quite well in many countries from a recruiting standpoint is to go direct to the colleges and universities, and specifically to the directors that are running the Disability Student Service offices, and having a program that's been called Disability Mentor Day. And you take one day, you bring in maybe 5 or 6 college students with disabilities for the one day of job shadowing. And the beauty of it is you think it's good for the student, and it is. It gives them some experience, but it's for the managers to have that experience working side by side for one day and say, you know, this isn't bad. I can do this. This person is no different than other students. And what we're finding is a very high percentage of those students converting to internships, summer positions, and then usually within about a 12-month period of time, employment with those companies. So it is working very, very well. One question I just did want to pose, because the thing you said, Bruce, was about the parents, right? So I mentioned I have 2 children with disabilities. I would love to hear from the company's perspective. What can you do to get in earlier, to get the parents to manage to their expectations of what it is that you actually offer, so we get them talking to their children when they're younger and thinking in a very different way? I think it's really important. I see Bruce chomping at the bit to answer that, so go ahead.
Actually, in companies you have employees, and some of them are parents of people of kids with disabilities. So the best thing is to share with your colleagues within companies your commitment, your level of commitment. It creates security because you have kids, you have friends, you have partners, you have parents with disabilities. Colleagues are an asset within companies, and they are the actors of the change.
Yes, same reaction. We have used comics throughout the year to sensibilize around disability more in a funny way, and we received some demands from employees who are parents to, for example, to work with the sheltered sectors where the kids are, or things like that. So it's really bring confidence in the fact that the company is really willing to do things so that they can be employees tomorrow, and then they will send their children to school for that.
And things change. This is a very positive point, and it could be a closing remark for this session. Now we will turn into a more interactive part of today, and each roundtable will end like this with a learning exercise. As you may notice on your table, you're going to work for the next 20 minutes around this panel topic. I will please applaud our guests.